Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, everybody. I'm Nizal Muhammad. Now, on July 8th, President Biden said a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan was highly unlikely. On August 15, Taliban fighters were in the presidential palace in Kabul in a matter of weeks. Now, the Taliban reversed the 20 years of history in Afghanistan. It resumed power of the country in a most unprecedented way. Fast, the thing is that it's fast but not furious, which is something that is not a normal thing that we hear about the Taliban. It happened at a speed that no one predicted. The swift collapse came as a shock to most observers. Now, today, on International Affairs of Nizal and Co., we will be zooming in on the current state of affairs in Afghanistan, assessing the past, the present, and the future. This brings back memories to me because I was involved in one of the work done for Afghanistan long time ago. But anyway, I shall not be hosting this interesting session alone. I have the honor today to be sparring with a long-time friend and a colleague, which I see more of as a family in the world of community development and humanity. So, without further ado, he will be our reference person as well as he will also be shooting some questions if he wants to. All right, to the panelists. So let us have him on board. Assalamualaikum, Cikgu Azmi, Tuan Haji Muhammad Azmi Abdul Hamid, the president of MAPIM, is with us today. Assalamualaikum, Cikgu.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Brother Nizal.
How are you?
How are you?
So
Fine.
you're not in Kabul. All right, you're not in Kabul, yeah?
I wish I'm in Kabul right now, but we'll wait for that, inshallah. Thank you.
Right. I heard that you're planning to go to Kabul.
Yeah, within a few weeks' time. The planning is there, and the context is already been made. Inshallah, pray that we can, speak for ourselves in Kabul.
So now that's precisely a good time for me to put you as a co-host, because that will be an indication that there will be some programs from you from Kabul. Okay,
Inshallah.
look, we have with us three panelists, and I think shall we introduce them? Because actually, these three panelists, these three experts here, they were the ones that being introduced by Cikgu Azmi himself. So I'll have him do the honor in introducing our three experts. Tafadhal, Cikgu Azmi.
It's been great having this special session. It is very timely. Things are getting and it is unfolding. So we have these speakers, whom I'm close with, all of them, and I know that they are quite well in a way. They know what's happening. They analyze it. They are keeping up with what the progress. So we have number one is Dr. Abdul Razak Ahmad. He's a friend now of me. We've been in touch for the last few months, and I feel very happy to be with him. He is the founder director of the Bait Al Amanah. It is a research organization. Is doing a lot of public policy research, and he's very well experienced in many countries that's been around, and he knows the situation of many countries on the political, geopolitical, the economic development, and the rest. And I think, yeah, he's the right person to also share with us his insights of what's happening in Afghanistan. You're most welcome, Dr. Razak. Thank you for being with us. You're very far from us now, but I wish you everything's good. How are you?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tuan Haji. I'm well, alhamdulillah. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much for being with us. You have a very nice background with the trees there. So
yes. In fact, he's the only pilot today. He's the only pilot today.
It's summer here. It's summer.
Oh, it's summer. Okay, good.
Also, quite a long friend, Mr. Muhammad Zahid Abdul Aziz. He's been with me. I've been observing his work. He's very obsessed in the financial, the monetary issues of the world, not only in Malaysia, and a very a person who really have the perspective that most of people don't have. And he's the deputy president of the Movement for Monetary Justice.
So you mean to
It is,
say, Cikgu Azmi,
yeah,
you mean to say that our Tuan Zahid is actually a financial addict?
it's something like that.
Okay.
He hates all the money that's around the world now. He's fighting hard to erase all it, but
All
we've got
right.
great ideas, and I think Afghanistan would love to have him to, advise them on how to deal with the situation, at least on
Yeah.
the economics and the financial part. So you're most welcome,
Yeah.
brother Zahid. How are things with you?
Terima kasih Cikgu, terima kasih Nidal. Thank you very much
Okay.
for Nizal. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
And
for
now
being with
I
us.
have my elder uncle. I'm always address myself him as an uncle. He's really um, he's almost he's not a friend. He's not anything. He's my family. Family has been
Yeah.
around.
Mine
And,
too. I would say it's mine
yeah.
too.
So Haji Mohideen Abdul Kadir is has been in this um, NGO activism and very much in depth with many issues of the world because he's directly involved in consumer issues, environmental issues, in social justice, and his experience is vast. And he is now heading an organization called Citizens International,
Mhm.
which mostly is concerned with Palestine, but it's been addressing many issues of the world, especially among the third world and also the Muslim around the world that is very much engaged. And he's got this international justice network, no, Universal Justice Network (UGN).
Mhm. Mhm.
He's established that network is dealing lots of issues around the world about the situation of the Ummah. So these are the three, to me, very able, will be
Mhm.
giving us, sharing us insights of many angles of the Afghanistan issue. And I think our conversation should be a bit relaxed. This is not a
Yes.
seminar or something. It's just like,
No.
we'll give you some
No. No. No.
questions, and we share crisscross
Right.
among us. It doesn't matter. So,
Yes. Yes.
back to
It's a
you, Brother Nizal.
conversation.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
This is a conversation. It's a good conversation among five gentlemen that we have been. In fact, before the program was on, we were really discussing, talking about many things. Yeah. Now, well, let's begin with this. Now, the funny thing about the situation is that this happened in such a fast manner. So I say fast because it's just a matter of weeks when Joe Biden says what I have said just now. You see, he said that no way Taliban will take over. But then again, after a few weeks, he said it on July the 8th. And then August 15, just a day before my birthday, actually,
Ah,
Taliban took
happy
over.
birthday.
Taliban took over. Thank you very much. Taliban took over. I don't know. Possibly I can rejoice it with them. But the point that I think we need to understand is that the the Taliban that we know before or has shown themselves before is not the same as the one we see. Now the question is why? This is interesting. Why the change? There must be something fundamentally different now than before. All right. I give you a good example. I remember this guy because this guy has been not in the limelight in terms of physically. We don't know him. Who is he? But his name was mentioned time and again on behalf of the on behalf of the Taliban government. Now, for years, the man who spoke for the Taliban hid his face from the world. As a voice of insurgents seeking to overthrow the United States, backed government in Afghanistan then, his name is Zabiullah Mujahid. He was seen as an outlaw and a terrorist, right? All right. In media appearances, his face was covered or blurred. But that changed in dramatic fashion to that Tuesday, all right? That was really the day we had him on board. all right, when Mujahid spoke openly and extensively at the news conference in Kabul, his group, and he mentioned this. He said his group has changed too. Now, this is one thing that I feel interesting. And I've never seen. I was watching CNN on TV, and I was surprised that the CNN reporter, a lady wearing a hijab, and although he's not a Muslim, but he wore the hijab. She wore the hijab. She asked questions to a Taliban leader, and there wasn't any issue at all. And he spoke in English, and he spoke freely, and there wasn't any problem at all. So my point is this: is this change genuine? Even one guy from Afghanistan was said to say, "Can the real Taliban please stand up?" So I think I put this question to the floor. All right. But I'll give, because the reference person is Cikgu Azmi. So I'll give Cikgu Azmi to cue which of the three gentlemen would be the best to talk about it. First person to talk about it. Please, Cikgu Azmi, who
Very,
will be
very
the
good.
best?
Very,
Betul, gentlemen.
yeah, yeah, very good, Nizal. Probably, Tuan Haji Mohideen, can you deliberate on this point?
Thank you, Nizal. Thank you,
Yeah.
Azmi. I think it's a very important question because a lot of propaganda that is going on in the West is they are regurgitating the old
Mm,
actions of the Taliban. So we need to understand whether there has been a transformation. We must
mm,
realize that Taliban began as they were students from
mm,
Islamic seminary, and
mhm,
they were mostly Pushtun. When they took
mm,
over Afghanistan, they were mostly Pushtun. And Afghanistan has several uh, ethnicities. You have
yes, yes,
not only Pushtun, you have Tajiks, you have Hassas and all that, Shias and all.
exactly.
So after the American occupation, the Suspans retreated. For 2 years, there was hardly anything. Then, when, with the American bombardment going on, trying to look for Osama bin Laden, even dropping the biggest bomb ever imagined, which will create a crater, killing thousands of Afghan men, women, and children. Then the Taliban began the new attack, begin to resist the new resistance. But in the meantime, I think they must have. We have to talk to them, but they must have been reflecting on the mistakes they have made in the first instance
Mm,
and
mm,
taken measures to correct it. Firstly, it's no more just the Pashtuns. Other minorities also came into the movement. So it is not just the Pashtun movement based in Kandahar. So you had
mm,
Tajiks, Arabs, and others. Secondly, they were very much on the ground and they were very influential. Although they didn't occupy any of the towns, they were very influential on the countryside. The people were with them. And third thing is, they tried. They felt that in their first period of uh, government, they isolated themselves from the world community.
mm,
So they must have taken measures to establish relations with China, with Russia, with Iran. There was they were in the first period, they were very anti-Shia, and they killed, I think, killed the Iranian embassy fellows. So
mm,
Iran and the Taliban's were clashed against each other, but that changed.
mhm,
Now they had approached. In fact, I saw a video, one of the Taliban leaders sitting in a village in the Shia part of Afghanistan
Afghan.
and explaining
Mhm,
to them, this is a national struggle. This is a struggle to have peace and we want an inclusive government. All voices will be represented in the government. So there has been a very, I think it is not they are not pretending or anything, as the Americans try to project. There has been a real, genuine change in their strategy. They are actually, theirs is not just a Islamic struggle. Theirs is actually a national liberation struggle. It's a struggle against American imperialism. That's how they see it.
Yes.
That's how they want the world to support them. And this is going to be a great inspiration to many of the people outside, particularly in that region. Because if they succeed, it will be, it's remarkable. How can you defeat a nation that has bought $2 trillion, that has the latest armaments, is the latest armaments to fight, and that has built up a so-called Afghan armed forces of 300,000. You have another 100 or 50,000 NATO forces here, and yet they cannot defeat. I think the Taliban, according to some estimates, they had 60,000 fighters. They couldn't defeat them. So it shows that's why the West is in a state of denial. It shows the popularity of the struggle waged by the Taliban. People in Afghanistan are tired of war. They have 40 years of war, 40 years of suffering, 40 years of killing. So they're totally tired of it. And they saw the corruption in Kabul, with the Ghani government and all that. So they are fed up. They threw their lot, where they like Taliban, they don't like, but they saw Taliban as the force that can bring peace and stability to Afghanistan. And that's what the people of Afghanistan want. So there has been a real transformation in Taliban. In the Taliban today is quite different. The Taliban of the first Taliban you met, Nizal.
Yeah.
I think they are very sincere when they say they want to have an inclusive government. They want to have want the rights of women to respected. Of course, not in the way the West interprets human rights, within the context of Islamic values and teachings. I think they're genuine about it. They are for free press. But my only fear is the Americans and the West will not be happy. In fact, G7 is meeting today. I don't know, maybe tonight, to decide whether to impose sanctions, whether what strategy they should adopt. Because they cannot accept the fact that Taliban is in control of the country, and they cannot allow them to succeed.
Very good.
Okay.
And all right, I think after listening to Haji, I think I would want to know our pilot. What does our pilot think about this? Dr. Razak, if we can agree, Cikgu Azmi, let us have the guy who's now having a good holiday, but at the same time thinking about the world and Ummah. So while having a holiday. So, Doctor, please be kind enough to share with us your thoughts on what's happening, taking from what Haji Mohideen has said. Oh, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. I think
Okay,
you have
sorry.
to unmute.
Yes,
All
yeah,
right. All
yeah.
right. Okay.
Sorry.
All
Thank
right.
you very much. I'm not really on holiday. I've been working. I just want to put things in. I just want to put things in perspective. I think number one is that I really cannot believe the fact that American intelligence is saying that there's no way Kabul is going to fall. Everybody knows that 50% of Afghanistan were controlled by the Taliban, even before the announcement of Biden for the withdrawal of American forces. So everybody knows that Taliban has been very significantly present in many parts of Afghanistan, and I'm actually astonished with intelligence. I'm sure intelligence community have been able to assess the situation very accurately. Number two is that. In fact, the Taliban themselves were very, very surprised with the falls of Kabul in a short period of time. I was in communication with Suhail, and
Mm.
Suhail was informing me that they were not prepared. They did not anticipate that it could have fall in such a short period of time. It was only 11 days. So whether the Taliban has changed or not is very much going to be determined um, by their actions over the next couple of weeks or couple of months. It's very important for them to manifest, what happened, what is said in Doha and what is said in Tehran and what is said in Istanbul is really being implemented on the ground. If you listen to one of the spokesperson interview with Al Jazeera a couple of days ago, and he made it very clear that his biggest challenge, the Afghanistan biggest challenge now, the Taliban biggest challenge now, is to actually discipline its own militias. So it's very important for them to really make sure that what is said in Doha, what is said in Istanbul, what is said in China, that they really want an international community to recognize them. They want to be part of the international system. Is manifested with the actions, with the commitment on the ground, observing, laws and order, and ensure that there is peace and stability. I think the third thing that I want to emphasize is that Taliban badly wanting to have international recognition. 2 weeks ago, I did organize a webinar on Afghanistan with Tun Mahathir spoke, and when we extended the invitation to a representative of Taliban in Doha, he was keen in the first place. He has given his commitment to speak personally to me and also to another friend. But at the very last minute, he pulled out because, on the advice of the political chief, the Mullah Barada, he said that they think that it's better for them to, speak to a conference or a webinar which is hosted by a government-owned, a government-related agency. So they really wanted to make sure that, it's international endorsement. So I think. Whether they are serious about changing, whether they are keen about changing, is very much going to be determined about what's going to happen over the next couple of months.
Right. Now we come to our finance addict, Cikgu Azmi. I've got a question for you. Maybe, but before I come up with the question, if I can agree with my co-host here, social reference person, I just like to find out about the other side of our discussion, and that is the economy and the reliance on foreign aid. Now, we know that Afghanistan is one of the poorest countries in the world, and more than 20, from my record here, 20% of its gross income comes from foreign aid. And the US has froze its central bank, Afghan central bank asset in the wake of the Taliban's takeover, while the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, access to its fund. Now, and follow suit with all the Western donors going out and things like that. Yeah. Now, my issue is this: the issue that I'm trying to drive is, in order to unlock international funding, all right, the international community's recognition of Taliban government will be a key, as the group is still blacklisted in the United Nations. Now, my point is, the confidence that Taliban has. They have shrugged off the idea of reliance on foreign aid, saying it's fighters' survival, because their fighters have survived on bread and water while fighting the war. Well, ideally, we can talk about it like that, but you're talking about a nation running a whole country with the most majority of them are poor. So, how do you go about handling this? How do you think Taliban should be handling this in the most amicable way economically? That will be my input. And if I just want to find out, Cikgu Azmi wants to add on before us getting our Tuan Zahid to answer. Anything to add on that, Cikgu Azmi?
Yeah, we are following news about the whole economic mechanism of Afghanistan has been sort of shut down, semi-shut down or fully shut down. They say that the banks are dried out of cash. and they say that even the NGOs who are trying to get funds, it's difficult for them to transfer. But so the whole mechanics of economics is in a way it's like halted in some way. So probably with that addition, Mr. Zahid, you can give your views on this.
Okay, terima kasih. Thank you, Nizal dan Cikgu Azmi.
Sama.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Nizal, let's welcome our international audience from Somalia, Nigeria, Ghana, all our friends.
I'm so happy.
Inshallah.
Oh,
Okay.
welcome to Nizal and Co.
Okay. I'm glad you asked, both of you asked that question because to me, Afghanistan in 2021 is the deja vu of Morsi in 2012 in Egypt. As we were excited with Afghanistan, with Taliban, we were also excited with Morsi. But we saw that Morsi collapsed within 12 months. So the point that I want to make, and I will emphasize this for Muslims throughout the world, you can win the physical war. You can also win the electoral war. But you never will win the war until you win the monetary battlefield. Not many people realize that we will always fall when it comes to the monetary battlefield. Yeah, that particular war has been going on for so long, and we are on the defeated side. So really, whatever victories we obtain physically in warfare or even in the electoral platform, it is so easy for them to topple us again via the monetary battlefield. What I meant by the monetary battlefield is, let's look at Egypt. Even before Morsi won via Ikhwan Muslimin, Egypt was a debt slave. I do not think I have to explain the definition of a debt slave. I'm sure most of you understand. It's the World Bank basically giving a 2 billion loan to an underdeveloped company, knowing that the underdeveloped country, knowing that the country will never be able to pay, and therefore becomes a debt slave. So Egypt was 10 times a debt slave by the time Morsi took over, and it was just a matter of 12 months before he collapsed. Now, looking at Afghanistan, I told Cikgu Azmi, I am an Islamic monetary reformist, actually, Nizal. I'm not an Islamic finance guy. I was an Islamic finance guy. I'm not an Islamic monetary reformist. I'm very excited. Afghanistan is just like a clean piece of cloth that we can rewrite. But before that, I think not just us Muslims, but I think throughout the world, we really, really need to understand the monetary system. We don't, actually. We really don't. When you do not understand the monetary system, it is so easy for the perpetrators to victimize those who do not understand. Let me just begin, if I may, by telling you the story of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is the privately owned central bank of America, which was set up in 1910 by five banking families in America, who tabled the Federal Reserve Act on the night of Christmas Eve in Congress in 1910. It was an empty Congress. And the next morning, they have the Federal Reserve, the only central bank in the world which is owned by private bankers. Having America in their hand, they then looked how to control the world. They did this by taking over an institution called the Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. The Bank of International Settlements was actually set up to settle war reparations. But in 1947, they took it over. and they started issuing Basel Accords. And naive central bank governors from throughout the world come to adopt this Basel Accord and go back to the nation to implement it without asking who is really behind the Bank of International Settlements. I would just ask anyone just to Google Basel, and they will realize that 1897, Basel was also the place where the World Zionist Organization was formed. I honestly do not think that the Bank of International Settlements being located in Basel is a coincidence. Yeah? Now, if you look at the the numbers, if I may, for a while, before I suggest a solution, if you look at Egypt in 2012, they have a total external debt of 40 billion. Afghanistan was now it's only 2.84. The debt to GDP ratio for Egypt was 80%. Afghanistan is 7.8. Yeah. Total debt of Egypt was 223 billion. Afghanistan now is only 1.56. Budget deficit for Egypt in 2012, 35 billion US dollar. Afghanistan, 200 million US dollar. So basically, Afghanistan is at a very good place, a very good location, very good platform to begin. If they do not succumb to the normal narrative. The normal narrative is to go for international debt to fund their country. That is the most unfortunate mistake Afghanistan would do if they proceed on that score. Now, everybody think that when you need money, you have to find US dollar from the World Bank. This is not true, actually. It is absolutely ridiculous to borrow US dollar to fund revenue expenditure. It is absolutely ridiculous to borrow US dollar to fund consumption expenditure. If you want to borrow from outside to fund your capital expenditure, that makes sense, okay? But for Afghanistan to borrow from outside the country in order to pay its army is something that they should not do, and I will vehemently oppose if I'm able to give an opinion. So the question may be, the question that will be asked by people now is, where would Afghanistan find the money? This is the misconception of money which has been carried on by the whole world. Yeah? Money is nothing more than numbers that you can create for yourself. So basically, if any nation wants money to develop itself, okay, let's take a new country. Let's say Afghanistan, a new country. It has a central bank. Let's say it wants to build a huge industrial complex outside Kabul that maybe costs about 500 million US dollar. All it has to do, and imagine that there is somebody that owns the land and then somebody that owns the resources to build the industrial complex. Yeah. All the central bank of Afghanistan have to do is to create numbers, create a figure 500 million US dollar, hand it over to the company that's going to build the industrial complex, okay? And then the company that's going to build the industrial complex will deliver a certain sum number to the owner of the land and the balance to the owner of resources. At the end of the day, you will have your industrial complex without borrowing from outside. Yeah? Of course, it is not as simple as that. The presumption is everything that you need is within the country. Yeah? If ever you need money from outside, then Afghanistan need to sell something, get the foreign currency and buy. But if the development is inside Afghanistan, okay, not just the Islamic monetary reformists, the monetary reformists of the world. There is an international organization called International Movement for Monetary Reform, will tell Afghanistan the money is within you to generate without borrowing from outside. Nizal, thank you.
Wow. but for me, that is an eye opener, Tuan Zaid. Now it's not as simple as a 1 plus 1 or a plus a and b. It is more than that. It is there's in a way it's a conspiracy behind what you see, which is very interesting actually. And we need to know all this kind of information because we may be hearing so many fake news that we believe in fake news more than the real thing. Uh, Cikgu Azmi, I'm giving you the opportunity to shoot the question first before I come with my questions later.
Back to you again, Dr. Razak. It's very intriguing to understand the whole international response that is almost expected. Except for probably China has come in and make that contact. But I think there will be a rallying move, of course, by the US,
Mm-hmm,
trying
mm-hmm,
to put the agenda on Afghanistan, and the others will follow. What
mm-hmm.
do you expect this to be within the next month of the international response and their, what they're going to do about Afghanistan?
But thank you, Tonaji. I think I really have to say this that you know one thing that people underestimate is that what is happening in Afghanistan now is really an emergence of another humanitarian crisis, and the international community is very concerned about this
Needed.
looming international crisis. So and I think this has forced many players to really rethink about their approach in dealing with the Taliban. I know that they are not going to recognize Taliban. I know that they are not going to be very friendly with the Taliban. I know that they're going to talk about sanctions and etc. But effort has been made by the international community, especially by the developed countries, to start talking to the Taliban. A couple of days ago, I was with a senior advisor of the AKP party in Turkey, and I was introduced to a very senior ex-diplomat from the United Kingdom. And it was very surprising when he told me that the British Prime Minister has dispatched a very senior Muslim cleric to start talking to the Taliban. So they are making contacts with the Taliban. Yesterday, there was a meeting between Nicholas Byrne with Mullah Baradar in Kabul, and there have also been various, communication between President Erdogan, the new president of Iran, and many other countries with the Taliban. There is no way that we can imagine a future of Afghanistan without talking to the Taliban.
Mm-hmm,
We have to be, realistic about this. That while we push for a democratic transition, while we push for
mm-hmm.
a greater engagement with the international community, we have to be
Yes,
realistic that an inclusive government means Taliban must be part of that, and a big
yes,
part
yes,
of that. So I think
yes.
there are efforts by international community to start making contacts, and that's what I propose to the Malaysian government too. That while we
Mm-hmm,
don't talk about recognition now, we should start making contact. Why? Because
mm-hmm,
number one is what we are more concerned is not the Taliban. What we're more concerned about people who are
the
going
people.
to be, affected by the crisis, the humanitarian crisis that is looming. You're talking about medicine, supply of medicine for Kabul, for Afghanistan is only going to last for another one more week, for example, and there's no way for international community to send all this supply because of the chaotic situations at the airport now. So it's very important for us to really contextualize this. We are not talking about, I think recognizing the Taliban government is not a priority now. We really have to see how they're going to behave over the next couple of months. But it's
Yes,
very
yes,
important for us to address the issue of humanitarian crisis that is looming, and we have to
exactly,
make
exactly.
contact. And that is the reason why I've been making contact. The reason is because this is the channel in which Muslim countries can
Mm,
actually come together and tell the Taliban, we are not concerned about your political ideology. We're concerned about people who are not getting medications. We're concerned about people who are not getting enough food. We're concerned about people being displaced, and etc. So I think that is the most important priority now, and the international community is not going to let the Afghan people down. I think there is a strong commitment, even from countries like UAE, countries like Qatar, countries like Iran, and also Turkey, while the West are actually finding ways to talk to the Taliban through the various channels and mechanisms. Thank you.
Mm. Taking from where
Can I just take
what
on
you're
from that,
saying.
Nizal?
Yeah.
Nizal? Yeah,
Yes,
I
yes,
think
yes.
it is a very good point there from Dr. Razak. Can you take on from that, Taji Mohideen, about understanding the dynamics of Taliban and so many factions in Afghanistan that they have
Right,
to reconcile with. If you follow
right.
the news, there may be some things that they have to really manage within. And now
Yes, yes.
there are people trying to, capitalize the situation, and there are propaganda
Mm,
saying that you just have to leave. You just have to make sure that people just flee out of Afghanistan. This
mm.
the Emirate, Islamic Emirate, or the Taliban is trying
Yes, yes.
to sort of make sure, for the people, you do not have to leave. You're going to secure everything and that.
Mm.
So, how do you think that is being managed by Taliban now?
I
Cikgu
thi-
Azmi, I just want to add before
Yeah.
Haji comes with the $1 million answer. I like to ask. I'm putting
I think two
a five
cents,
ringgit five
two
ringgit
cents.
questions to add on to what Cikgu Azmi, and even to add on to what Dr. Razak said. You see, one thing I mentioned in the first instant that this takeover is fast but not furious. All right. Now the thing is that the progression was in part the progression of how the Taliban uh, developed that kind of relationship and that kind of strategy, that so much so that they went in without any serious repercussion. From the information I've received, that it is partly due to the coordinated peace agreements which were struck with local leaders, while the Afghan troops exchanged U.S. vehicles and weapons
Exactly.
for the safe passage. So that's one. But there's another thing that becomes an issue to me as well, because yes, we have this. They are doing a good job now, making friends, making partners with the people and with the groups and with the tribes. But there's one that they hated most and has been a pain in their quote unquote behind, and that is the Islamic State. They have been in such a force between each other that they fought each other so very strongly. So my point is this: the point is we are looking at one point there is a good things happening, but maybe on the other side, quietly something's brewing also with the group called Islamic State. That is the additional question that I'm giving. Just 5 ringgit. I hope you can ask with a very $1 million answer. Over to you, Haji.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the Taliban leaders realize the crises they're facing, the challenges they're facing, and they're trying to find solutions. For example, they have made general pronouncements about respecting women's rights, respecting inclusive government, and all that.
Mhm,
But at the same time, they emphasize the Islamic character of the country. They will base everything on Islam. How they interpret Islamic policies is yet to be seen. But the good thing is, they said they are going to sit down and discuss the details. If you talk about women's rights according to Islam, what are they? How are they to be uh, manifested? So it may not be in the to meet the Western standards, but but it must meet the expectations of the bulk of the population in their own country, and maybe Muslims generally. They cannot interpret in a way that nobody agrees. So the good
mm,
thing is they are discussing. This is a good spirit, not imposing their will on
Mm.
on the others, but discussing to find a common position where differences are to arrive at a common position. That is very important. As regards the economy, I think they face a serious humanitarian crisis, which they've admitted, but they have also uh, establishing good relations with the neighboring countries. I'm sure they will be approaching those countries to get help from these countries. And even the Western countries, I believe not all of them will take the same position as the United States or uh, Britain, a very hard position. We will put very strict conditions, and unless they accept it, we will impose sanctions. You know, the sort of very aggressive. I think there are Nordic countries and others. They are watching the scene. If they,
Mm.
the important thing depends on the government they are forming. So far, they have not announced the government. So they will be people will be looking at the people who are in the government, and if they see it's a broad-based government, and I think even European countries, maybe the Nordic countries, will be prepared to support because nobody wants instability in Afghanistan. Particularly, China doesn't want instability. Russia doesn't want instability. Iran doesn't want instability. Even Pakistan
Mm.
doesn't want instability. So it's in their interest to do everything to ensure that the humanitarian crisis doesn't go out of hand, becomes unmanageable.
All right. Okay, Cikgu Azmi, I'm giving
Is the
you.
2 cent
Okay.
answer worth? Are you satisfied with the 2 cent answer?
All right. Okay. Now we are putting some values in our conversation now. Monetary value
Brother
is not justice,
Cikgu
monetary
Azmi,
justice. Yeah.
Cikgu Azmi, this is why we have people like Tuan Zahid around, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Sure.
make sense of this. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Over to you, Cikgu Azmi.
Yeah, Mr. Zahid, yeah, you put up very
Yeah.
interesting. Making
Yes.
sure that there is any the path that they're going to take on the economic aspect of it, other than making sure that access for humanitarian aid will come. I think that is not really a problem. It will definitely come, but on really positioning them was in Afghanistan in its economic development is going to be tough. But you gave this formula of not necessarily getting money from outside, but this arrangement of the already existing asset in Afghanistan can be worked out. But again, it really depends on do you think that there's a way that the international community can sort of engage with the leaders of the Taliban and present them
Yeah.
this would be the viable and the most suitable. How do you convince them with the things that you have said just now? Because this has
Thank
not
you.
been done in many countries here.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Thank you, Cikgu, and thank you, Nizal. Uh, I look at the Afghans and the rest of the Muslim world as a relationship between the Muhajirin and the Ansar. They are requiring a breathing space at the moment. That's what they're telling us. They are not a poor nation. We all know they're sitting on 1 trillion mineral well.
Mm.
What they are asking the rest of the world, especially the brotherly Muslim countries, who must listen very, very carefully now. They are appealing. They are appealing for a breathing space. Okay? And this is the moment we go in, not the World Bank,
Right.
not the international creditors. This is the moment Muslim countries go in and assist Afghanistan. Yeah? So that they can take over the kerajaan which US has given up anyway, and then get a semblance of a government within at least the next 6 months to 1 year. And this is the time we go to Afghanistan and offer our financial assistance so that they can stand. They can stand, and then they can start thinking how to develop their resources. Yeah, we should not leave Afghanistan to the hawks now. This is the moment. This is the moment. All the Muslim countries must go in with whatever aid to give to them, so that they were able to stand on their own feet. And when they are able to stand on their own feet, meaning that all the medicines and the food is coming in, right? So that at least for 1 year, they do not have to worry about that. While they are recovering and finding their feet, that is when they will start talking to people like China, for example. And then when they talk to people like China, now again, you know, in Africa, China is all over Africa. And if you were to ask, I know I have a lot of African friends listening. If you were to ask people who are the heroes of Africa, I think one of them will certainly be Nelson Mandela. But to me, the unsung heroes of Africa are two presidents. Number one called President Thomas Sankara from Burkina Faso. And the other one, the current president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. Why? These are very far-sighted president of two African nations who says, no debt for my country. Yeah, I know what you're going to do with your debt. President Paul Kagame have outlined how an African country can develop itself without borrowing from outside. Okay, these are things that can be done. Inshallah, Cikgu Azmi, if they call movement for monetary justice, we will assist them. Basically, it's just creating your own currency. Creating your own currency. Paul Kagame have written, I think it's almost a thesis, but nobody listens to him. Thomas Sankara was just an army officer, but a very far-sighted officer. So these two presidents say African nations must not borrow. African nations can develop their country through creating their own currency. So what I'm proposing for Afghanistan is, at the moment, the Muslim countries must assist them, and within 1 year, they begin to start talking to China. But unlike what China is doing to Africa, giving debt to them, almost a repeat of the economic hitman as described by John Perkins, Afghanistan must insist on an equity relationship. Yeah, it must never be a debt relationship with China. And China is very, very keen to work with Afghanistan because they share a common border about 50 kilometers, and the other side is East Turkestan. And I'm sure China will want to be very, very friendly with Afghanistan. And I'm sure if you talk to them nicely, China will agree to an equitable relationship rather than the debt relationship which China is imposing on Africa. So that's my answer, Cikgu. At the beginning, assistance from Muslim countries, and then start talking to China for their equity investment in Afghanistan. And also, those investment inside Afghanistan that they do not need any resources from outside, they can fund it themselves using their own currency. That's it for the moment. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Yes,
Wow.
Nizal, on to you.
This is a food for thought, man. I believe the pandemic, this is possible because pandemic has taught us that we can create new norms, and I think the idea coming from Tuan Zahid is giving us that sort of thing. We need to have new norms for new situation, and even the Taliban has come up with a new norm in the way they handle themselves. Now, I think this is our last straw. Unfortunately, time is not with us. And usually, when it comes to the platform like international affairs, it's always beyond emergency time. So we have crossed the line, no problem. But as the as we reach the end of our discussion, I think I'd like to seek the opinion of the three of our guests, our gentlemen, including my co-host, who is also a reference person here. Now, where will we go after this? What will happen after this? What we hope. Something has already been touched by Tuan Zahid. But, you know, what should be done even more? One thing, the Muslim world that is mentioned by brother, Tuan Zahid, is very clear. But do we need more within Afghan themselves? Okay, within the circle of countries that is around Afghan, and with the Muslim countries, there has been always the one who's so quiet. Okay, but the issue is a brother is in need, but no one is there to help. So maybe can we go round the table? Last but not least will be Cikgu Azmi. But shall we go and talk to Haji? Haji, what's your take on this? What can we do? What's your final say about this issue of Afghanistan, the future of Afghanistan? We talk about the
I
past, the
think
present, but
they
now what's the future like?
I think they need support. Support not only in terms of funding, in terms of public support, in terms of there there's an there is an I think there is a move. The Western powers, the US and even India, for example, have not given up on Afghanistan.
Mm.
In fact, there is one of the tribal chiefs, Masood. He is refusing to
Mm-hmm.
recognize the Taliban, and
Mm.
there could be a clash unless they negotiate and settle it. I think a delegation has
Mm-hmm.
gone to approach. So we should be very wary of the development in the next 1-2 months
Yes.
and respond
Yes.
to it
Yes.
and not keep quiet and give all the support we need to strengthen the position of the Taliban. And we should also, as Cikgu Azmi is proposing, when situation sort of normalizes, or even if it not fully normal, he's trying to make a trip to Kabul with a team to understand what's happening and to also to talk to the leaders what sort of help do they need, because we cannot just impose what we think is on them.
Mm.
So maybe they need teachers, maybe they need engineers, they need agriculturists,
Ex-
you know.
yeah, expertise on this field.
So this sort of help, for example, material help we can give, and also importantly in the political arena, we should be able to mobilize support for them by appealing to our government and other governments as soon as they have set up a government to to recognize and to push UN to accept it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now let's listen to anything from the person now in Turkey, Dr.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Dr. Razak.
I have these. I've this concern, you know, while we were talking about a new mechanism to develop Afghanistan, etc. I think my biggest concern is this, that there are in serious lack of institution to implement all this. The
Mm-hmm.
strategy of the Americans and the Western world over the last couple of years has always been an emphasis on security and anti-terrorism, you know, combating terrorism. Very little has been done for nation building. You know, nation building was very much left to the international organization and to the NGOs operating in Afghanistan. So very little investment has been made into institutional building. That is why, if you see what happened in Afghanistan over the last couple of weeks, you know, the entire government system has collapsed because they are in dire need of stronger institutions. So even if the Muslim world come together and help, you know, without all these institutions, it's going to be very difficult. I think I want to be very realistic here that, you know, we have underestimated the situation in Afghanistan. The lack of institution is a serious one. If you ask me what Malaysia should do and what as a modern, very progressive Muslim country should do, I think immediately we should the new Prime Minister should dispatch a special envoy on Afghanistan, a special envoy which is based in the region and start working together with Iran, start working together with Russia, start working together with Qatar, start working together with Turkey, and get a consensus of not all Muslim countries. Not all Muslim countries are rich. Many Muslim countries are in dire need of international assistance too. But a special envoy that can actually work together with all these big major countries, Muslim countries, the D8 countries, to work on two things. Number one is to really work with the Taliban and convince them on a need to establish a government which is inclusive to everybody. And number two, to really focus on getting the OIC to convene a special ordinary meeting, extraordinary meeting, to actually find enough sufficient support to help rebuilding of Afghanistan. As I mentioned again and again, that it's very important for us to focus more of the people of Afghanistan and not so much of the regime. And I think we really have to work between the means that we have now to get the support of nations like Turkey. To be honest, Turkey has been very advanced, very, very advanced. They've been talking to the Taliban, and I'm telling you that dealing with the Taliban is not so difficult, because they have been dealing with the international community for the last 10 years. They have a presence in Doha. They have been meeting everybody in China. They've been meeting everybody in Kabul, in Istanbul, in Tehran, in Russia, So they are actually very exposed, and they have a level of sophistication that we never really imagined before. So I think a special envoy is very, very necessary now. Thank you very much.
Very good. Food for thought. Everyone is giving us food for thought and action, actually. So, for our friend who is very much an addict in finance and monetary justice, what's your final say of our discussion?
Okay. My final comment will not be touching on money or economy. I'll be touching on the
Okay.
media. Media, that
Okay.
includes you, Nizal.
Oh
We
my God.
noticed that the international media, it goes without saying that the international media is owned by a certain group that carries a certain narrative. We need to fight that. We have teenagers in Malaysia having views on Taliban given to them by the Western newspapers and social media. I think Nizal and company has a lot of responsibility on your shoulders to counter the negative views on the Taliban. I heard one English-speaking Taliban spokesman. He was a very, very civilized person, talking sense. That's one. We need to counter the media. And secondly, I think what Cikgu Azmi is planning to do, of course, what Dr. Razak says is our wish that the government will take the initiative to assist the Afghan government. But even before the government takes that initiative, people like Cikgu Azmi going to Kabul, I think is one of the ways that we can certainly assist Afghanistan. Maybe we first go to talk about financial assistance, and then we talk about professional advice, and then we can even be the Cikgu Azmi and his organization can even be the channel to bring in the professionals which Afghanistan requires. So I think that's the way forward, Nizal. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you really put that over to me when you talk about the media. Thank you very much. Oh, I can feel the burden already encroaching. All right,
Yeah.
my co-host, my dear co-host, and also a reference person here. Your final word.
Thank you. We had a very good meeting yesterday. What we call the regional NGOs on Afghanistan. So we had people from India, from even Bangladesh, from Myanmar, Thailand. We had people from Philippines, Indonesia, about 8 to 7 countries. So, and then we brought in a resource person from Afghanistan, from Kabul, and also from Herat. It was very informative. The things that we are trying to get, when we say, can we get some figures of what's happening, and the locations of humanitarian needs. They are saying that please give us time, because it's not easy right now to gather all the datas and whatnot. And then they really welcome. Please come to Kabul. We need all the help, or all the support, and that's how we came to the conclusion that okay, we're going to fix a trip to Kabul within the next few weeks, hopefully. Um, Taking on from all what you have said, and it is um, an enrichment for us to really understand that we cannot let another Muslim nation go down. I mean, they have done it one after another, from Iraq to Syria, Libya, you name it. So, for us to see another interplay of international politics on a suffering nation, from the British to Soviet Union, and then to America, that cannot be, we cannot allow to happen. Taking all the ideas and perspectives given by all of you, um, we're going to digest this through a platform that I'll be working out with Brother Nizal, although he'll be more on the media. But I'm going to have this, what we call the Malaysian Afghanistan Rehabilitation Committee. It will be a mix of people, and we're going to do the plan, but on the basis of what they tell us, and how they feel about their need, not us translating or trying to impose anything from us. We have to listen to them. And Dr. Razak was good. I mean, there is a really need this institutional uh, preparation of Afghanistan, which is really in need. But again, the culture, the way that people live, and how they manage their life in some rural areas. This organization called RRA, the Rural Rehabilitation Association of Afghanistan. They have all the indigenous knowledge of agriculture. They can grow food and all that. So that also gives me some hope that we can add on to what's already available, other than giving them what they need. So that's that approach. On the political side, on whether we can deal with the government as it evolved into a very organized thing, I think we still have to have time. But I saw in my connection with Kabul, they say, you can tell us how we want to learn from Malaysia. Malaysia is a very progressive country. How do we organize all this? And you have so many schemes and all that. So I think one of the things that they also need is for us to share. It's not for us to advise them. This is what we did on the rural areas and whatnot. So there's a huge thing, as Zahid was saying, it's a white cloth kind of thing. If we work together, I think we will have a nation that we can really be proud of among the Muslim countries. That's my take. So let me just say thank you, all the speakers. You please stay on. You are still our resource person. If I go, if any one of you would like to be with me, but it is a one-way ticket, you might not get back to Malaysia. You just have to London, and we'll stay in Afghanistan for another round of mission. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
All right. Suddenly remind me of a song, One Way Ticket. Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your input. It has been a wonderful discussion. I would foresee us as a catalyst of inspiring ideas coming in from outside to share this with the world, especially with people around us. Now, we know that the Taliban, when they took over the first time, they were young students, full of emotions and living in a utopian mindset, the ideal mindset. And they were very stringent and sometimes people were saying them harsh. But now they have grown. Now they have grown through space of time, exposure, experience, maturity, knowledge, and what have you. And they are reaching out to the world quietly, okay, quietly, and we can see there is some kind of a change. I'm not saying this is going to be a long lasting one, but I'm not also denying that it could be. So my point is this: there is a window of opportunity here for us to give or to have a safe conversation with them, and to create more safe conversation that can add value to some solutions. We, Malaysia in particular, has the means to take the lead. So I am very happy that Cikgu Azmi is putting his foot down and coming out with some kind of a delegation to go and meet the friends in Afghanistan, which has been my third home, I guess, because I was involved with them before. As then they even call me Mangal Nizal. So I think in the final analysis, let's be more matured in this. Let's be more objective, and let's be more brotherly in that sense. Okay, they are looking for solutions. Now, if we can find some solutions, let's offer them. Let's listen to them, and see where we can go from there. And if there are any doubts about what they're going to be, we can always advise them. And if they don't take heed or things that they might not be able to solve, then look, you're going to face the music if you make it wrong again. So they have made the first mistake, don't make a second mistake. Now, this is time for them to move forward and to show that they really mean business. And we, as a peace loving nation all over the world, should listen and see what we can do to help. Thank you very much to the four, I will say the four because Cikgu Azmi now is a reference person, no more co-host after saying goodbye just now. So the four musketeers, thank you very much. And we'll meet again. Thank you, we say to, of course, to Tuan Muhammad Zahid Abdul Aziz, Deputy Chairman of Movement for Monetary Justice. Thank you for Dr. Abdul Razak Ahmad, Founding Director of Bait Al Amanah. And of course, to my dear uncle, friend, family, Haji Mohideen Abdul Kader, Director of Citizens International. We'll meet again,
Thank you.
and may God bless all of you.